time for the second round of the 2023 TDI Club Enduro Championship here at Anglesey on the international circuit. On the sixth row of the grid is Matthew Stockford, who drives the Audi RS3 with Alan James, and starting alongside is the Class B poleman Scott Parkin in his diesel Golf. 2 hours of racing shortly about to get underway. The pit window will open at 30 minutes into the race and will be open until 15 minutes of the race is to go. And I think we might be getting 2 green flag laps out of this with the change of conditions. The pit window will open at 30 minutes and will close with 15 minutes to go. If the safety car comes out, the pit lane will be shut. So a new rule for this year. So once the safety car boards come out, the pit lane will be shut. However, if you get in before the safety car board comes out, you can complete your pit stop. Each pit stop must be over 3 minutes because there is refueling and driver changes. So to make sure that can be done as safely as possible, each pit stop will be 3 minutes stationary, except for the drivers with success at the opening round at Croft. In Class B, Scott Parkin the winner, so he's got 30 seconds. We're about to get racing underway with changeable conditions in store over the next 2 hours, and it's Will Stacey versus Alex Lively off the front row, then some of the more powerful cars behind the 2 lightweights at the front, and on the inside comes the Sayat there of Mark Rice to grab second position away from Alex Lively, who's out over the curbs, and he doesn't want to touch that Sayat because I suspect that's a lot stronger than the Ginetta if there was any contact, which there is now because Alex Lively's going to the side of him. And who's going to appear? Well, the Jet is back into second. That's an interesting way to take the position. The Jet will survive for now as they turn their way up into the right-hander at Church Corner, where Mark Rice is out over the curbs, but he's got away with that. He's got the Volkswagen Golf behind, which is driven by Cole Swift in the opening stint. Behind him, he's got Joel Oswick, who's got the most power. The M4 was really quick in a straight line at Croft. He was a Class C champion last year. He's upgraded to this M4 with German Autoworks. It's the overall champion for the last 3 years. He's following Cole Swift. But a new car for this year, this Volkswagen Golf that Area Motorsport have developed. But I think there was contact between those 2 cars up at the bank. But the Ginetta seems okay, Johnny.
Yeah, it held up pretty well considering the amount of extra bits that have been gradually applied to that Ginetta through the years. And you think of Ginetta's intrinsically being fairly lightweight, and panels are, well, not really bent, they're just often removed if you watch a lot of Ginetta Junior racing. But it stood up to the task pretty well. I just don't think picking a fight with a fellow competitor this early on in a 2-hour race is a great idea, but hopefully it was all taken in the course that it was meant. Bearing in mind, tyres are very cold indeed on these first few laps, and it's going to take a while to get used to the current track conditions as well, despite the 2 green flag laps. End of the first racing lap though, and it's Lotus Elise S2 that is out front.
And from the rolling start, so at 1:35 for the leader, and off the circuit, I'm afraid, Scott Magdalena, well, she's on the circuit, but she's not moving, she is now. That's Magdalena King making her Club Enduro champion today, the 31-year-old from Peterborough, the former 6 and C1 racer. A bit more power in the Lotus Elise to get used to. She's got the car back going again. Here's the battle of a second then. This is a bit like the race we had at Croft starting to develop, but without the Elise of Will Stacey involved, because he's just clearing off into the distance by 3 seconds a lap. But he had an alternator failure yesterday, which put him out of the Road Sports lead. So there's that question mark over that car. But behind, we've got Lively right under threat from Mark Rice, who's been in Club Enduro for a few seasons now in the nowadays this Hatcher Motorsport run Sayat that he shares with Will Beach. Then the Golf of Cole Swift, who's put himself up ahead at the start of the race off Joel Oswick, the 20-year-old, so one of the youngest drivers on the grid there, Joel, who won the John Miles Award presented by the 750 Motor Club, the most promising young driver within the club last year, and he's continuing to prove his worth in this leading second place group, I guess it is really, isn't it, Johnny, with Will Stacey doing what we think is very much possible in that car, driving away here at Anglesey.
Yeah, a quick fix, thankfully, overnight for that car that stopped out on the track yesterday on the start-finish line, when Will Stacey was able to pull it out off the racing line and onto the grass. It turned out that it was the alternator that needed changing and nothing more serious than that, pumping out about 6 or 7 volts, and that was it. So, anyway, it was changed overnight and it's going very nicely once again. It was nothing crucial, like an engine going crunch, although they have worked their way through a few head gaskets, I understand, already in that car this season. Meantime, who do we put in that, the number 1 Golf to start with? Rob Baker?
Carl Swift.
Carl, yes, you've mentioned that several times. People have been listening. Carl Swift then to do the opening stint. Rob Baker second in the VW Golf, and it's Carl who's coming under pressure from Joel Oswick. Also, the Scottish-driven 15 car to the outside of Harkin in the Audi TT. These two are mixing it up very nicely yesterday as well, I remember.
Yeah, that's right. Although I think it's Dylan Brichter to start the Audi Ryan Parker taking over. Parker drove solo yesterday, and in the Sayat, it's Colin Gillespie who will hand over to Phil Driver. So both of these cars will see different drivers during the course of this race compared to yesterday, when they were solo driven. A shout out for the other classes. Scott Harkin leads in Class B, and in Class C, David Lawrence leads in the early stages of this race. So interestingly, Cole Swift, who won the Road Sports race yesterday, is behind a couple of the cars that they beat yesterday and started to pull away. And Joel Oswick, who didn't race yesterday, but the only one in this group, isn't he, who's just racing today in this M4, is putting him under all sorts of pressure at this stage, Johnny.
Yeah, again, interesting brake application, and the power out of the corner from the BMW M4 was so much more rapid. Carl Swift had to jump from one side of the road to the other in order to defend. That's just about okay, I think, if it's one movement into the braking area, as again Joel Oswick is super late on the brakes in the big BMW M4. This is drawing in Dylan Brichter and Colin Gillespie then in the following car. So Audi TT ahead of Seat Cupra with the tartan nose of Colin's car that he shares with Phil Driver. He's in later on, but 1, 2, 3, 4 all competing for 6th place and the remaining positions in the top 10.
I wonder if some teams, looking at the weather forecast, have put different setups on their cars going into this race, because Cole Swift is really struggling. And what's happened to the Audi TT there? It's slowed. We've got a first problem in the race for Dylan Brichter. The Audi TT just lost a couple of places, but now he's fighting back. So perhaps that was a short-lived issue. So Brichter's fallen behind Colin Gillespie and Luke Handley, another of the solo-driven cars, but Brichter then down to 8. He shared the car with Dan Sylvester at the opening round. But what I was going to say is Cole Swift is falling a long way behind the cars ahead, which is a pretty unusual scenario. He was struggling with this car, now he's running wide again. He struggled with this car at Croft, and it was oversteering a lot. But in this one, Johnny, I think it's a different issue. He was understeering there through the hairpin and really falling away, which wasn't the case last time out at Croft.
Well, if there is a lack of traction down there, then in a front-wheel drive car, you are just going to understeer well deep into the corner. And that's exactly what happened to Carl Swift and Colin Gillespie. I think Gillespie's now ahead of Swift, in fact. Yes, he is. So now Cupra leading Golf. But neither of them could get the cars turned in at hairpin, whereas the rear-wheel drive BMW M4 was laughing because it had all the power delivered from the rear wheels and actually helped the BMW to rotate. And then it gets extra good grip and traction off the corner. So helping Joel Oswick, and if we carry that theory over to the Mark Grice-driven Seat Cupra, maybe Oswick can close in on that very swiftly indeed.
And for Will Stacey, leads by 12 seconds after 4 laps. Remember, he's got a 30-second pit stop penalty for that victory at Croft. He's done a fastest lap of 1:33.5, so only about a second and a half off of qualifying times. So with that rain we had during the previous race has gone away, the track conditions have come back to us. The cars are full of fuel at this stage, because generally what will happen is everyone will fill the cars up at the beginning, so then they can go as long as possible if they think the strategy will work for them with a late stop. But there's a bit less of that nowadays with that new regulation that you can't pit during the course of the safety car, because we've got that in previous seasons. So as Johnny was suggesting, Joel Oswick is pulling clear then of the Cupra behind of Colin Gillespie. So Joel Oswick, driver from Hertfordshire, who's only been racing for a couple of years, was the Class C champion last year. This BMW M4 is a 2016 car. He's got a twin turbocharged 6-cylinder engine, so lots of power in that machine. There's power in the rear wheels of the BMW M4, and with a lot of front-wheel drive machinery around. Really, the other rear-wheel machinery are both lightweight cars, the Ginetta and the Lotus up front. The BMW, a big heavy car, light front-wheel drive cars, but it's being pushed along rather than pulled along.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the, I think they call it twin scroll turbocharged technology that those straight sixes hold in the BMWs. Normally twin turbos sit in the middle of a V engine, but they don't have those generally speaking in BMWs. They much prefer their straight engines, but it is very, very potent in the M4, and it was a personal best last time around for the Joel Oswick car, so 137.0, quicker than Mark Grice. And I just think it's more manoeuvrable, that BMW, in these slightly greasy conditions. Not really raining right now, using really all of our camera lenses as the ultimate indication. Joel not here yesterday, we don't have any kind of yardstick really as to what sort of pace the BMW can offer us, but I think it is quicker than the two cars ahead. He'll be hard pushed to be quicker than the Lotus Elise though that leads the race.
Oh, and the other Lotus is off. So Magdalena King has had a second off. This time she is on the grass. She's gone through one of the corner markers out of turn one, so that would have been a big spin. As I said earlier, she's come from 6C1, so this is quite a step up, I think, to the Lotus Elise. These tricky conditions we've got the start of the race not ideal. Now, can she get the car off the grass is the next question. Meanwhile, Stacey's gone through to complete 6 laps, and Joel Oswick has caught to the stage ahead, hasn't he? So he's right with Mark Grice already. That was a gap of over 2 seconds before that lap started, so I think you have to be right. At the moment, the rear-wheel drive cars are good. I think if we get full wet conditions, that's when the front-wheel drive could come into effect. But that concerning weather's pattern about half an hour ago is less concerning at the moment.
Yeah, keeping our eyes to the skies, of course, because it can change, and very quickly here at Anglesey, because of its coastal location. We are on the full international circuit, 2.1 miles, and that suits a long race like this, I would wager. And certain front-wheel drive cars look to be set up or just handling that little bit better. Luke Handley in the second of the VW Golfs is running pretty well, with Dylan Brichter just behind. Brichter had a moment in his Audi TDI not too long ago where the car maybe just a brief cut of power, as Magdalena King is still on the grass, and double waved yellows, no, safety car boards are now being displayed. So first safety car, and that automatically will close the pit lane for mandatory stops.
Although we're not into the pit window open yet anyway, but what it does really mean is Will Stacey's 20-second lead that he's already pulled out is going to come to nothing. And they can see that car that's off. I think one car that will have to painfully past the safety car, if allowed to do so, is the BMW 1 Series, which returns to Club Enduro this season, driven at the start by Carlo Turner with a new sponsor on board, which is LTS Global Solutions. So the car now goes through, and the pair in Kent, they call their team, Johnny, Stormin Camel Racing, and they chose that name because they were fans of Flying Lizard Motorsport and thought, what can we do? And they've chosen Stormin Camel rather than Flying Lizard.
I like that. Well, in other types of racing, the 24-hour series, you had the red camel cars, so Storming Camel I like, as long as there is a kind of snarling camel emblazoned on the side of that car. I haven't looked at it closely yet, but if not, there's a bit of time till the next round. We can rectify that.
Certainly there has been in the past, with a new livery on it, so I'm sure we'll pick it up over the course of the next couple of hours. Safety car out then, and there is no cars that have been lapped apart from the full rating 1 car of Edward Christie and the 20 car of Vitus Imperius at this stage. So they're going to lap down. Everyone else is still on the lead lap. Let's have a look at the class positions. We haven't had much of a chance to do that yet. Scott Parkin leads Class B, and he'll be frustrated as well by this. He was trying to make up a margin. Again, that's another driver who was a winner at Croft, who had a success penalty to serve during the stops. Chris Plaskett is second, Joe Williams in third, Chris Webster is fourth, Michael Downey fifth. In Class C, it's David Lawrence, again a winner for Croft, who leads from Matthew Stenning, who's there in second in Class C, and then Imperius in third. We've got, unfortunately, got so many Class C cars. The car is in the pit lane at this stage. Tyres being changed potentially here on the BMW M3 GTR of Luke and Paul Rouse. Luke Rouse in the car at the moment, 38-year-old from Suffolk, former Patreon Compact Cup racer. That car is an ex-Jeff Steele racing car that nowadays prepared by ITV Racing, but in. I'm not sure if you spotted anything on that car, Johnny. It may have been wrong.
Not wrong. I just wonder whether they're making a slight adjustment regarding tyres. I don't see a new set or a different set of tyres that were about to be offered up to that car, but clearly something not quite right. We're not in a position where it's going to be beneficial to change to a different set of rubber, or the recovery now of the Lotus of Magdalena King continues on with Elise running in the mid-pack, car number 97.
Yeah, that's a car with a 1.8 litre Rover K-Series engine prepared by British Sports Car Services. But not rated overall in the past. Valley Henderson, their Class A elite, new Class B for this weekend. So I question whether the information I have about the power of this car is the car they did nipping at. Due to the actual Class A car and prop that broke before the race. But is now being towed away by the recovery car. If that car can get back to the pit lane, they'll be able to see if they can get that car back going. I think it was just a spin and then perhaps a hot engine unable to be refired.
One of the polystyrene boards was completely torn apart, but that was just a spin when Magdalena was somewhat of a passenger going backwards through those boards, but are designed to hit not to do too much damage to the car. So we've had 15 minutes under the first safety car. Mandatory stops not yet allowed, but we can head to the pit lane now to Andy McEwen for this update.
So early safety car then here at Anglesey gives us a chance to come down and chat to a few people in the pit lane, and I've found in the pit lane, surprise, surprise, Rob Boston. Rob, there isn't a pit lane in the country that I don't seem to bump into you at. Today though, you're getting back out there on track in the second stint. Hopefully it's the race leading car.
Hopefully, yeah. We've the car's been ever so quick this weekend. I've been really happy with the car. Wheels driving superbly. We've been fast. We just need to bring it home now. We've got a little bit of a challenge in that if we keep getting these safety cars, then we're not going to get to draw out our necessary gap for the pit stop penalty, the success penalty. So we would quite like the race to get going, so we can get a bit of a gap, and then yeah, I'll jump in the car and hopefully just do enough to bring it home.
It looks like the perfect car really for this place. Quite a technical circuit. We know the Lotus that really excels in those sort of low speed change of direction corners. Yeah,
it does. The attributes of the little Lotus around here are just ideal for the circuit. So compared to our competition, this is a good one. So on that basis, we will hopefully maximise it and take a win. We go to places like Spa and other circuits, and they're just too long with straights for our little Lotus. So it's swings and roundabouts. So horses for courses.
Will's doing a good job out there so far. I last saw him probably 5 or 6 years ago in a Mazda of yours. He and you, of course, have both had success in Lotus in the past, though, so it's a brand that you are familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, we're well familiar with the Lotus. It's every day's a learning day, though. We've had the new one yesterday, a new little problem, so there's always something. But, as long as we do our best, stay on top of it, and, I think today's going to be trying to be a sensible day.
Sounds good. Congratulations. Thank you for having a chat there, Rob. Heard you chatting about weather just now as well, by the way. It is not raining at the moment, I can tell you, having popped outside again. But it's just got that feel about it that there might be some rain on the way. A long way to go in this race, of course, so wouldn't be surprised if the weather does affect it at some point.
Thanks, Andy. Good timing because the safety car lights are out. And I suspect what we're about to see, Johnny, is Will Stacey drive away from the pack once again, which is the way this weekend has gone. A very different track to Croft last time out. We heard there from Rob, different cars, 2 different circuits. And at Croft, it was very equally matched. We've got that again behind Will Stacey, but Will's just happened faster around this layout.
The other thing that cars that are very, very potent don't tend to like is circulating at reduced speed, because you have to think about things like heat soak, red hot racing car all of a sudden being told to go around at safety car speed, and there is a chance for certain components to become very warm. The slight issue that Rob was talking about that he didn't mention in truth was that the alternator failed yesterday and they had to replace it overnight, but that's a pretty quick fix on the Lotus Elise S2. Will Stacey will continue to lead, John.
And problems for Cole Swift because he was stuck behind the lapped car, which meant that he's lost a lot of time for second place. We've got a change though because Mark Price has got the Cooper up alongside Alec Lively, who he squeezes and squeezes and squeezes on the grass heading up towards Church Corner. So Alec Lively's, he's got to be very cautious through Church because he got dirt on his tyres. probably he would have been advised just to back out of that moment to get back onto the circuit. But what that means is now under pressure as well from the M4 of Joel Oslick, but a big gap behind Colin Gillespie because of that lapped car between Gillespie and Cole Swift. Cole Swift knew he couldn't get past until the line, which means he lost 7 seconds.
Yeah. Rapid difference in car's shape, not only in footprint but also roof line, eye line from driver between the Ginetta G20 that is now in 3rd position and the chasing Joel Osric in the big M4. There's Colin Gillespie then in the pretty much all tartan liveried Seat Cupra. And that heads now through the left-hander at Siemens, pursuing those 2 cars up ahead. But Rob Boston will be very happy that Will Stacey's made a good break again in the Elise S2. Thankfully they weren't into lap traffic, and that would have been waved by anyway during the safety car period. And he has a clear road in front of him again. We're expecting to see Rob Boston in that car later on in the race once we get to mandatory pit stop time. And the classic TCR moment for a Seat Cupra in that the front right wing extension, if you like, the outside of the fender is starting to work its way loose, I notice, on the Grice car. So he's up to 2nd position, but an indication maybe of the contact with that Ginetta, although I think it was on the front right rather than the front left, which is where the Ginetta ran out onto the grass.
Okay, we did have that first lap in as well, so whether
maybe it's from that then, yeah.
I wonder if that's some of the squeezing that was going on, a reminder of what happened on that one. Anyway, here's the battle for 7th place between Luke Handley and Dylan Brichter. For Luke Handley, he's a 3-time class champion in the Club Enduro Championship in a car like this, but this one's got the big turbo on, which means it's a Class A car rather than the Class B car that he's won the championship in the past. So a step up against the fast cars this year for Luke Handley. There or thereabouts so far. That car, you remember, had an incident in the Roadsport race yesterday. That was a suspension collapse going up towards the hairpin. The area Motorsport team have fixed that though for Luke Handley, and he's one of the few people who are in a solo driven car, which can sometimes be hard work, but it's a much cooler day than we've had on occasion. Now, I've seen the safety car lights on and the safety car board being shown, so we're trying to work out for you what this is for. With 20 minutes into the race at Crop, I think we got through about the first hour and a quarter, hour and a half before the safety car came out, but this time we've had 2 within 20 minutes.
Yeah, the answer to exactly why this second one has been issued is that it's the number 20 Honda Civic, which has quite a bit of damage on the front left corner of it. Damage to the wing, but more crucially, I think either a steering arm that's gone bang or a wheel hub that has failed. So that is the 20 Honda Civic of Vitautas Ipiras, and Ipiras was sharing that car, wasn't it? So we didn't see a second driver in that machine either.
I think he's solo today.
Oh, okay.
Ipiras, I believe.
No, you're right. Yeah.
He is the 3rd of the Class C cars, and unfortunately the class and the cars for the cars of least power are a little bit lower on numbers this weekend. So a shame that we may have lost one early for Ipiras, who's a new driver to racing. And this car that he's driving, part of the Tagiwa Foundation programme in cooperation with the 750 Motor Club, which basically means there's a set fee and the club will sort out your race licence, will get you overalls, all your race entries for a full season of racing for a set cost. So those are very popular things, not just in Club Enduro, but other categories as well. Unfortunately, that car in strife for Ipiras in the Lithuanian liveried machine. And if that the damage that appeared, that may be a car that does not come back during the course of this race. So, what was Rob Boston saying about not wanting safety cars? I think he jinxed it that time. That's not our fault, is it?
No, definitely not. Don't blame the commentators in that case. I can see what he's saying though about wanting some rhythm to the race, wanting nice clear air, because the Lotus likes to run as cool as possible, as do most of the cars in this race indeed. And again, the fact that these cars are being, their progress is being hampered by the safety car is just not healthy, especially we're still a long way away from the pit lane opening. Again, haven't quite half an hour of this race, so over 75% of it still done. A frustrating stint for Will Stacey, because this is the point where the lead needs to be being built as early as possible.
Yeah, he's got that 30-second success penalty to think about. As it stand, hoping to build any type of lead over the car that actually is second from the by Mark Wright in this race. Those different shapes and sizes you mentioned, Tony, just coming through. I haven't counted up all the different types of car we've got, but there's very few which are replicated over the grid here. There's a few Golfs out there, but even then, some of them are diesel powered and other are petrol powered. But it's great to see the variety, which once again the 750 Motor Club has brought together here.
3 Civics, but I would think the one that's just sadly retired is possibly the oldest of the 3. There is another Type RF, as it's called, Type RF, for the Lawrence and Sanford duo, and also for Peerless and Stenning in the standard Type R. But I haven't seen all those Hondas side by side, just at high rate heading past us on the start-finish straight. But again, I think it goes with your argument that they're all very different.
The King Lotus is back. Magdalena King, I can see, is back on the circuit. So obviously, the British Sports Car Services team not having too much of an issue there, and been able to get that machine back out there. And as the safety car's back out, so it means Andy McEwen is really down the pit lane. Let's find out who he's caught up with next.
Well, quite a peaceful afternoon down here in the pit lane so far, because once again the track falls quiet with a safety car. Gives me an opportunity to have a wander up right to the very end of the pit lane, where I found Rob Baker from Area Motorsport. Rob, sharing your VW Golf with Carl Swift again today. The guys in the box have noticed that Carl was perhaps slipping down the order a bit in the early stages, but you don't seem overly worried.
No, I mean, we need to look after the tyres firstly. There's normally a high chance of safety cars, which we've seen. And if everyone in front of us is pushing extremely hard, the safety car keeps closing it up. So Carl's just trying to keep to a pace that keeps him in sight, if you like, and hopefully he'll have fresher tyres come later in the race.
These Golfs that you've prepared over the last couple of years, they are absolutely immaculate. It must be so rewarding for you to be getting some success with them on a regular basis now.
Yeah, for sure. We've obviously raced the TCR for the last 3 years in this championship. That car was raced, the car we're racing was raced last year in Class B, and it had a number of wins and lap records, so we decided to sell the TCR after our 3rd championship in it, and basically move on to the Golf and see if we can keep up with TCR cars in it. So yeah, it's a challenge for sure, and we're learning each time. We've had the cars for a while, but the power is totally different to manage, and it's about an extra 70 horsepower. But yeah, we did well in road sports yesterday, won that, so that's the first win we've had in Class A, with that car, and see what we can do today.
It must be good fun for you as well to be able to get back out behind the wheel, because I'd imagine it can be a bit stressful running a team in a higher level championship. To get out there and just get back to what you love doing the most must be really good.
Yeah, I enjoy doing it, and unfortunately we've got a great team of guys around us, so in situations like this they've all done it with me for 5-6 years, so they know it like clockwork, and it's not really something I have to keep on top of. I can leave the guys to it and know they're going to do a good job.
Well, so far they're doing a brilliant job, as is Carl out on track. We'll let you get back to it now and look forward to seeing you in the car later.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
So Rob Baker then will be taking over that Golf a little bit later on, but no panic with Carl Swift's pace. They've got it all in hand.
Thanks, Andy. Good to hear there from 3-time champion in the Club Enduro Championship, Rob Baker. A bit of intel about what the thinking process has been moving away from the FIFA several Golf. He shares with long-time co-driver Carl Swift, currently in 6th position, so hard slid around a lot of the 7th Rob. Since 4 weeks ago, filter it here, and looking after the tyres at this stage. They'll be glad that it's not as hot as yesterday with the tyres. Again, a long race, and if you can try and double stint those tyres, that will help you make sure you make the pit stop within that 3 minutes.
Yeah, true. So you can't go quicker than 3 minutes, but what you don't want is the work in the pit lane extending beyond that, because everyone is trying to time things as swiftly as possible, not giving us that clockwork. Sometimes there are real niggles in there. But to look after the tyres, I think regardless, these safety car periods will be helping with tyre wear, nevertheless, because that also the fuel burn is far less fuel at the reduced pace for those cars. Now the stricken Honda Civic have hit out as Perez is being hooked up. Now, this is a Honda S2000, which I don't remember racing yesterday. So this is what I'm talking about. You get to the end of the race where you can see a car for the first time, Josh.
Yeah, and this is the S2000 driven by Dan Onsalo, who was Joel Orton's teammate last year in the BMW 3 Series, where they won the last season. Dan now has the S2000 with Charlie Darr, who's also driven the car in the past, but another different model of car within the championship. That's what it was all about. And with a bit of luck, we're going to see another type of Honda before the end of the season, because Tagiwa, our sponsors, are currently building up a Honda NSX for the season. I think one out in the past. Another type of car. It could be the power weight ratio, which is what production cars quick. You can put that into the championship.
Yeah. It's all assembled deliberately like that to attract many different types of cars. I'm a car fan. I like to watch close racing, but new and varied cars being added to this particular trophy as well. It's really encouraging from a popularity stance, but also for interest as well. Spectators and for fellow competitors too. They want to see what they can match their cars up to, and you've got the Golfs, as you said, that are of different specs. So the TCRs with those very wide front, particularly wheel arches, say have to have similar. You need to keep an eye on the front right corner of the 27, say at the half price, whether that's going to start to touch anymore. But then the more standard Golfs further back, including that one that's just weaving around there, looking very stealth-like indeed. Now, as the pace of the safety car really backs off, so the light must be out now, and this is a pace being set by Will Stacey, easing his way into the hairpin, and now the Lotus goes, Josh.
I'd suggest if you're driving that slowly, the others could overtake you because you could have broken down.
Well,
that's a little bit. He's been a little bit too far from Will Stacey. Anyway, that's what he's done. He knows he's quick through the hairpin, and that's where he tries to let the safety car get away and then propel his way forward. Because now he's got a different car behind him for the first time. It's the Cupra of Mark Rice that's there in second place, and Lindley in third, Oswick in fourth, fifth is Gillespie, and then in sixth position is Cole Swift, and that area Motorsport developed Volkswagen Golf, and he's right back in the races now after that safety car period. There's a Class B leader, that's Scott Parkin. Second in Class B is the second of these Golfs, that's Christopher Plaskett. Now that's one of the Class B area Golfs that Rob Baker was talking about, that they basically just put the bigger turbocharger on and a few aero upgrades and moved it into Class A. Well, that car there, that's Cole Swift, is at the wheel of. So it looks a bit like a TCR car, but that particular Golf is not. That is a self-developed machine. I believe it's got a TCR rear wing, so that's can confuse matters. But there's Lively in the third position in the Z-Tech powered Ginetta G20, which I told us yesterday originally was one of the original Ginetta G20 Junior cars, which has now remarkably been changed. There's our Class B leader, so this is Scott Parkin in the diesel Golf for the 33-year-old from South Wiltshire. It's an ex-Honda Cup car that's been developed by Darkside Motorsport and the diesel engine attached, because Darkside are diesel experts. So if you have a business where you want to garage exercise with diesel machines, why not put a race them? And that's what they've done, not just that Volkswagen Golf, but the Audi TT as well, which is driven by his brother Brian Parkin a little bit later on. Out of a third position though, Johnny, up across the line, and then 7-8 cars involved.
Yeah, well, Leslie is leading that particular part of the race with the Ginetta G20 to hand over to Adam Bessel later on. Joel Oswick right with him in the BMW, only 6/10 of a second back. Then you've got Carl Swift in the VW Golf, as Rob was describing, going, well, approaching this at a more steady pace perhaps than others, hoping the race comes to them much later on. Luke Hanley is only a second or so back from the GTI. Got a quick glance at Scott Parkin there, who leads Class B in the Golf TDI, heading through Church now. But a glance once again at Luke Hanley, just ahead of the Audi TT of Dylan Brichter.
As we've had half an hour of the race, the pit window is now open, and the next time to stop is, firstly, obviously, you need to make sure that your fuel tank will allow you to go the rest of the distance. But is it better to make an early mix of these new regulations that anyone particularly sure of that now? Because before, if the pit window was open throughout, the safety car didn't make a difference. And generally, you wait for the safety car to come up and make a difference. You can't do that anymore. And it really has mixed up the pit strategy, and that's the whole idea of that regulation. That we're seeing and the teams learn from what happened in Cross, where they adjust their strategy accordingly.
The longer you leave it, the more dangerous that game becomes, because we've already heard Robert make the point. This has got a high percentage of safety car, this particular track. There's always the opportunity to spin off and end up in a vulnerable position. I think because of Anglesey's nature of folding back on itself. A perfect example was in the Royal Porsche Trophy a little earlier on in the day when I said, oh, that car's safe, and then you went, yeah, but what about the approach into the final corner, which I've completely forgotten about. So there's always the chance of a high probability of safety car. We've already had 2 of them within the opening half an hour, so I would favour pitting earlier in the pit window than later, but perhaps not in the opening 5 minutes.
Let me see Joel Oswick then, the Class C champ last year, out in the Motorworks M4, being chased by Colin Gillespie, who's been great for the championship for a while now. And Oswick was mighty late on the brakes there, almost got into the side of the Ginetta GD20 of Alan Linsler, which just caught that. And Oswick, he went really well at Cross, but they had a few technical problems towards the end of the race, that machine. Only the second race that he's been in it. Turns his way then up through the left-hander Siemens. And win races in the past. Luke Sajakowski, Dave Whitmore, they shared in M4 victories. We're hearing that the Honda S2000 is now being pushed into the garage. The car we saw in the pit lane earlier of Dan Orsano, that car's got a misfire. It's such a shame got him to lose a car from the race at this stage.
Especially because we clearly haven't had much time to enjoy that car either, with no action yesterday, but it was obviously in the pits, out of sequence and out of the mandatory windows, and clearly there was an issue. We're trying to sort that out, maybe doing a bit of fault finding. Clearly there's too much work to be doing in race. Very wide approach into the banking for the Ginetta. This is surely Joel Oswick's opportunity to get alongside Alec Livesley, but the pace of the Ginetta is very good off the corner, and the big BMW still can't make that work. Fascinating battle this, because the Beamer looks better on the brakes, but there's real speed from the Ginetta as it pulls away from the slower corners.
The end of the straights, you'd think that the M4 comes stronger. From that, there's not very many long straights. You can say the brakes on that car are mighty, and Oswick hides the Ginetta out of view as he gets alongside. But the G20 hands on. This is a great drive from Alec Livesley, because yesterday he did drop away a bit in the road sports race. A little bit, and he said the tyres weren't coming up the temperature. Perhaps those 2-3 flag laps for this race first helped him out there. He's been able to hang on up front. We saw Adam Beck, who qualified that car second quickest this morning, the ex-Mazda racer, when he gets in the second half. Particularly just a fraction more pace that would come from it, although Alex is a good driver, he was right. That car, like a lot of the others actually, all very evenly paced between the two drivers, and that's always an important part of endurance racing, isn't it, Johnny, to have 2 equally paced drivers, rather than one really quick one and then one fast.
Yeah, I mean that works often from a financial stance, but it's difficult to read the race in that respect, and also sometimes to set up the car, because you generally want the car to be as best in terms of setup for the slower driver. They're the ones that are less comfortable and less able perhaps to drive. The car's really been set up for a proper racing style. Again to the inside is Joel Oswick of the Ginetta of Alec Livesley, but no way through there. There's a better opportunity for Joel to have to go. In fact, trying to get underneath the same corner, the banking. They've now worked their way through the very, very quick Church corner. Right-hander out in the country, it feels, although it's actually not very far away from the paddock. There gives you an indication, because the start-finish line is just the other side of the school section. This time, still the BMW not in front of the Ginetta, and being put under a little bit of pressure in the braking area there from Colin Gillespie's Seat.
Interesting that Liv kept that really wide line through the banking, but obviously it works for him, because as we mentioned a lap ago, he's got so much momentum off the corner, and he's able to carry that lane through uphill, just about keep Joel Oswick at bay. Good battles here. It's a different feel to the Crawford racing that we had at the front of the pack, but nevertheless to watch. Here is that Ginetta with that low body kit and on that machine that Anglesey has developed. He's been a long time racer in a variety of machines, racing against Healy in several different competitions in the past. Behind him, Oswick, and then Gillespie starting just to fall away a touch from the two of them. Gillespie and driver didn't have the best of times at Cross, so this is much better for them up ahead of Ron Baker, who is clear now of teammate Luke, of a co-flip, I should say, 6, who's clear of Luke Hanley under threat. So Dylan Richter, and also dropping in that battle is Andrew Rapp in his Seat. But the battle for what is 4th and 5th position head through Church Corner, and the Ginetta just started to run away now.
Yeah, I think what it needed was the lack of having to defend to Joel Oswick for a few laps, and then Anglesey could really start to establish that gap in 3rd position, because up until this point, after the safety car, Alec has been in full-on defensive mode, always needing to be aware where the BMW is in the braking area. It's interesting that side by side there with the Audi TT about to be overtaken by car 92, which is the Seat Leon Euro Cup car, and does make that move stick. So car 92, which was started by, jump in here,
Andrew Rapp.
Thank you. I'm rapidly trying to fill time whilst I find the right bit of paper. It was Andrew Raff with Phil Nim to take over during the pit stop, but a nice little overtake there at the inside into Rocket. It's an interesting view of Sylvan's corner as out of the first bend comes the S2000, but it's rejoined the race. We thought that was a retirement.
Yeah, so they managed to fix whatever the problem was, and we're also here in Vitus Papirios is also due to return to the circuit as well. Excellent. Which, if that happens, all 23 cars that started will be returned into the race and doing a 2 safety car which is a bit of a novel approach to these things. So remember that 30 seconds that Will Stacey was trying to pull out. He's now done 23 of them. Doesn't feel like we had the restart very long ago. He is lapping 4 seconds faster than anybody else. Qualifying only 2 seconds quicker. Race pace is doubled that. There is Stacey then. We're not going to see much of him in this race. We better have a look at him now because he's so much faster than the rest. He's joined the battle behind. But Will, one of the young drivers, there's a huge diffuser they've developed totally out of the back of that car. He raced this car in the Lotus Elise Trophy many years ago when he won that. Over the last few years, Boston Racing have developed this car. It's just putting a lap on that Stormin Camin BMW that we mentioned a little bit earlier on. But really, as Keith was saying, he's driving this car superbly. And he's very shortly going to have that 30-second gap again. I think he's looking for it.
Yeah, so crucial during the mandatory pit stop. There's an extra 30 seconds on the reserve, but if you're leading the race by over that, shouldn't be too much of a problem. Now, talking about Andrew Raff, as I eventually did, that car's definitely going slowly in 8th position. Has it already lost a place?
Yes, it's the other Darkside behind. The livery gold, so that's the parking behind.
It's all right though now, coming out into and out of Siemens. So whether that was just a brief hiccup, doesn't get back up to full speed. It's certainly able to match the pace of the Scott Parkin car then behind.
It looks like Scott Parkin has hand out the window trying to get air into the cockpit. We've got to drive this car for another hour and 17 minutes, so that's a slight concern, you would think. There is Stacey again, he's 26 seconds ahead now. He's done another 4 seconds on the car behind. The car behind of Mark Wright has been caught by Alec Lively, and a pair of them have had an interesting beginning to this race, so we'll look at that later. This is about the third in Class B, but Joe William, with rain spots on our camera lenses again, has been caught by the Ginetta G40, another car that started life with Ginetta Junior, but has been upgraded. This is the car of Chris Webster, who owns this machine. The car that was previously owned in the Rocco collection, so then we'll have a gold livery to it. And Chris Webster drives the car across the line. It's nowadays got a 2.5 litre Duratec engine. It's a 2015 machine. Again, very different sizes and shapes in this bracket.
Yeah, great to see, because the Ginetta that is traditionally from what make racing, whether that be the juniors or the G40 Drivers' Championship of various different levels that you can get to, it's amazing what you can do with the G40 and how much souped up you can get it. Chris Webster's done a wonderful job sharing that car with Matthew Tidmarsh. So we'll see the driver change again a little later on in the race, but for the time being, good dice at the moment with the 88 BMW Golf heading into and out of Rocket. Joe Williams versus Chris Webster is a battle I think will continue on. Chris has decided the best way of getting the airflow correct is to at least open the driver's window, the passenger window stays closed.
Battle with Joe Williams, who is Herefordshire, only started racing last year. He's done a little bit of racing in the production Golf Series, but nowadays enjoying the Club Enduro Championship. This car previously raced by Mark Rice and Will Beach, who are in second place in the Golf before. This is it, 2-litre turbocharged car from 2010, prepared by Joe's Williams race team. So they make their way up towards the line. It's the battle with 13th overall. Class B continuing to be led by Scott Parkin, who is a 4 seconds player of Chris Glasgow. Again, both of the drivers with success penalties, or for Scott Parkin. So that is another battle that could change. I've noticed though, the rain starting to fall, which means some of the drivers are elected to put their window wipers on. And for Will Stacey, well, on the previous lap he was a bit slow, but I think that was just traffic. He's still in the 33s, but I guess that's the other thing the teams might be waiting for. If they perhaps will need to change tyres at some point to put the wetter tyres on, more heavily moved tyres, they don't want to be having to do that out of a mandatory stop.
Yeah, if you can do the two at the same time, then that will reward you hugely. There's a bit of grass taken there by Will Stacey. He's pushing so hard to dispatch and therefore lap Chris Webster in the sky blue on the Golf livery. So he's now sitting between Webster's Ginetta and Joe Williams' Golf.
He's now 36 seconds ahead of Mike Rice, so he's got the gap he needs. He was 6 seconds faster on that last lap. It's ridiculous, isn't it? I know there may have been traffic involved, but that is an extreme rate of pulling away. About a second is about to go into traffic, and Mark Rice is continuing to keep Alec Lively at bay. They're just heading up towards Rocket now. And then Joe Oswick and Colin Gillespie not that far behind. You can just see them in the distance. Really, you can see the rain falling as well there. Potentially heavier than we've seen yet. It's a great battle. As I say, this is quite similar to Cross, just that we're facing the result we've got up the road. The battle takes a second position now.
Again, I'm judging it by Alpha Live's camera lenses, but the rain seems to be worse down at Hairpin and also the top of the circuit at Rocket, which tends to be where the weather closes in. I don't think it's as bad coming out of turn 1 and into the banking, so probably everyone having to adapt depending on where they are around the circuit. This is the view to Siemens, definitely lots of windscreen wipers in action there, and also important to judge whether you're on intermittent or full wiper setting. Joel Oswick, I think, is somewhere in the middle there. And a swerve from the BMW coming out of Hairpin. I think that's as he dropped the rear left tyre on the very wet grass there, but controlled neatly. So second and third, right together. Mark Rice ahead of the Ginetta driven by Alec Lively, and another car returning to the racetrack, which is the Lithuanian Honda.
Yeah, that's right. So Kira, so we thought had a significant failure earlier. Kicked a code of some description earlier. That car's returned. Importantly, if they can get that car to 50% completed race distance, they will score points. And there's only 3 cars in Class C. That means significant points on offer as well.
He arrives though right in front of the second and third place fight overall, and it meant that Mark Rice and Alec Lively possibly had to get out of the throttle. I think that was definitely the case for Mark Rice, who still has that bit of bodywork trailing. You won't know anything about that, but something for the officials to keep their eye on, just to make sure that the outer skin of the wheel arch isn't working its way further loose. Once I've seen that bit of bodywork start to loosen at about the 12-hour mark of the 24-hour race, and it hangs on for the rest of it, so it's not an immediate concern. Ginetta a little wide at Peel, then heading down the hill towards Siemens. Just lost touch of Mark Grice on this occasion, and that is allowing the BMW Joel Oswick to get a bit closer.
This battle haven't yet really seen terribly much side-by-side action, but that might be about to come. We're coming up towards the halfway distance, 11.5 minutes away from that now. Lap time still pretty close to dry pace. We're not seeing any kind of spray or anything like that at this stage. It's like the second place car in Class C about to go a lap down Matthew Sting. And you've got that far behind the class leader, David Lawrence, who's just going to shot there now. But this lead, wide line, and Oswick well out over the curb, sideways in the M4. How often have we seen that when it starts to rain? Cars get up over the curb. I'd imagine the front-wheel drive cars won't be so bad. A car like the M4, which has got a lot of brake horsepower, doesn't really doing that too much for Joel Oswick. That's at least the second slide we've seen out of a slow corner for him on recent laps.
Yeah, well, it's very easy if you then do get up the curves and start to rotate and spin all the way around and into the pit wall. So that is not the place that you want to be testing how much grip is out there. Once you've gone over the limit, it may be too much to get back again. As I say, so much power going through those rear wheels of the M4. Out to Joel Oswick. Heads up the hill then. Clear sight again of the strange saying, Seat versus Ginetta battle of two very, very different cars, but nevertheless evenly matched. And Mark Grice driven car. Who's going to be the quicker of the two there between Mark Grice and Will Beaton? There's about they're very similar nowadays. Mark Grice is more experienced. Co-driver Mark Grice. Okay. So this is going to be a strong attack all the way through the race. The lights are starting to flash now from Mark Grice, slower Honda Civic to negotiate next as traffic. Yeah, we'll see how they deal with that. I think the Class C leader, David Lawrence, I think, heads that 1.9 seconds. He keeps the right side of the circuit. Problem for that back of the second place to slice through. Really good inside line of that back marker. Joel Oswick's not to worry about the curb, the exit corner. Behind them, doing a good job is Colin Gillespie, who was a potent finisher the first time he raced this car. Again, very different lines into the banking for Lisley and Oswick. Excellent for their lead, so certainly where Lisley's got the advantage. It's been a eventful race, Vitus Furious, hasn't it? He's had a spin. The 32-year-old from Suffolk. That's a Lithuanian coloured machine. There's a Class B leader, that is Scott Parkin, and he leads the class now by 6 seconds over Chris Pulaski, who's about to go a lap down on the race leader, Will Stacey, as they come up across the line. So Stacey's at the line, he's now half a lap ahead of anybody else, and the next half of that covers many, many cars. But here's the battle for third between Alex Lisley and Joel Oswick, with the wipers still on, by the Hertfordshire. They are now putting a lap on the Porsche Boxster of Michael Downey, who runs in 15th position overall. Still, rain falls. It seems, Johnny, it's just not as heavy as perhaps some people would expect it to be at this stage. Yeah, don't speak too soon, I suppose, but many will have been keeping an eye on the radar of weather coming in. Now, the Ginetta peeling off to the left, indicating one of the earliest pit stops with the green flag out, so we don't have to worry about that bit of regulation. We're not on the safety car, we are inside the window. So here comes the Ginetta G20 of Alec Lisley to hand over to Adam Bessel, who is ready, suited and booted, already jumping to the aid of his teammate to get him out of the car safely. Yeah, so what happens there is the driver will get out, both drivers will stay out while the refueling is done, and that's going to come up next. Yesterday, this team weren't able to do their pit stop within the time, the minimum, well over the minimum time in the road sports race. Well, it is a much longer pit stop time, of course, that includes refueling, so they'll have to keep an eye on that if it goes much over. So 1 hour 7 to go. The car is still there with less than 1 hour 4 to go. That was just an issue. We'll try and remember those numbers in 20 minutes of time. And you can see the pit stop ongoing. Now, an early pit stop for this team, I wonder, Johnny, if that will start to push the hands of competitors. They've got a similar strategy to this machine. I think when you got one car that's pitted and others haven't, definitely the advantage sits with the car that's already made its stop, because there's a safety car, pit lane will remind you will close. Pit lane window in total is what, 20 minutes?
No, it's still 15 minutes to go.
15 minutes to go. So it stays open for a long time. The longer you wait, not the more likely the safety car is, but the higher risk for me, because you may be locked out of the pit lane effectively before you do the manual stop. So it's much better to have it in hand. It also depends on the agreement you've had beforehand with your co-drivers to how much seat time you're going to have, because there's an equal amount of payment coming in and they want to get their money's worth. But this is as close to half distance, I think, as Alec Lively can cope with. And Alan Bezel eases himself into the cockpit.
Jeff, it should be done within 3 minutes then, because quite a bit of time. Strap him into that G20, that should be fine. This is the battle for 11th in the race. This is newcomer Matthew Stockford, who's out there in the Audi RS3. And Stockford is a disabled driver who's, making his debut in any racing in this Team Dynamics run Audi RS3, who has the area motorsport belt, which lights up the inside for Chris Plaskett, the 31-year-old from Surrey. He's in the Class B car who makes his way through.
So that was Matthew Stockford losing a position to Plaskett. Joe Williams going pretty strongly as well in the VW Golf number 88. But Alec Lively is currently displayed on our timing screen as in 12th position. Remember, that car is still losing places. It's its first pit caller to hand over to Adam Bezel. And actually the scrapping that involves Matthew Stockford's booted Audi TCR is not yet done. He only had a good exit coming out of Church, but in turn has now lost a position to the BMW that was tucked in behind. So that 330i that has gained the advantage once again. Plenty of place changes, therefore, just outside of the top 10. Meanwhile, Will Stacey continues to charge on and is happy to circulate at 1 minute 35, 1 minute 34s on occasion. Can go quicker should it be required, but a mammoth lead now. Oh, a spin for the green BMW that I was mentioning earlier on. Let's just give you the gap for the overall race leader. It's 1 minute and 2 seconds, bearing in mind he needed 30 seconds, Josh, in his back pocket.
Yeah, it's the end of the difference, really, isn't it? An impressive drive indeed from Will Stacey. Luke Handley is in, up the front runners in 51, and up to the front runners out of 47th position currently for the area motorsports run Volkswagen. Joel Oswick has put himself onto the back of Mark Price in his Sada Cooper, and they're lapping Joe Williams from the front runners in Class B now. He's still involved in that battle with Spencer in the FG40. Stage of the race, because it's such a long pit window, which takes a long time for things to play out. Unlike perhaps other series that are shorter pit windows, it means the strategy certainly plays into the occasion. Throughout the majority of the race, those pit windows have changed over the years. Originally, it was any time in the race you could stop. So some cars stopping at lap 2 or 3. That's not a good idea, so we brought in the pit window, and now the most recent change this year is having this no pit stop on the safety car, which again adds another strategy element.
Well, certainly elsewhere around the world, thinking the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in the US, you get a full force caution, as they would call it there. That automatically closes the pit lane because of the huge advantage of pitting under a safety car or a full course caution carries. So, but I like this. You get to a rule set and you go, well, it's not quite working. Let's adjust it to make the racing more interesting.
I'm not convinced all is well. Rob Baker, who said he doesn't get involved in the running of the car on the weekend, has got a laptop plugged into the car, I reckon. Let's see if we can get a view of that. Certainly, yeah, he had a laptop plugged into the car, which would suggest that all may not be well with Luke Handley's car.
Maybe checking something like a minor misfire. It's got to be electrical, I think, and it's very easy to work out the diagnostics of a racing car these days by plugging laptops in and getting data downloaded that way. But they want to be able to might be a case of literally downloading it to the laptop, then getting it back in the garage before you can fully work your way through what they were trying to find out. I think they probably wanted to make sure it was safe, at least, to keep the car running. They're not going to do it any damage by continuing it on, but something minor may not be quite right with the number 1 VW Golf.
Also into the pit lane has come back in his Euro Cup car. And he's going to hand it over to Phil Nip, who owns the car. See, this is his name on the side. He has got a co-driver. You can see there Ambulance Championship, Charles Goodrich, watching over the pit stops, making sure everything is done to the regulations. Regulations done for safety purposes. You can see there the driver behind, geared up with a fire extinguisher, just in case anything goes awry. All that safety, all that in the name of safety.
Exactly, and these part of the reason why you have a minimum pit stop time as well, so that everyone's not rushing like crazy to do a Formula 1 style pit stop as quickly as possible. It needs to be relatively sedate so that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed there. Now the little Lotus that we saw spinning earlier on, I think it's coming in the pit lane, but it had its right-hand indicator on, so Magdalena will need to remember that the pit lane is to her left as the car comes down pit road for a pit stop, a legitimate pit stop this time. The car's already been in pit road after it was recovered by one of the Anglesey flatbeds.
And the race leader is into the pit, so Will Stacey has jumped out of the Lotus Elise. Rob Boston currently on fire extinguisher duty, but then he will take over the leading car. So they're into the pit. Magdalena King did make her way down the pit lane, so I think learning that car and perhaps where all the dials are on it as well. She will hand over to Amy Riley, who therefore will make her debut in the second of these cars of the Class C leaders is David Lawrence in the Honda Civic FN2, another of the foundation cars that separate from Club Enduro together, I believe, run by VW and Motorsport. You can see on the side there. David Lawrence is running in 14th position overall, leading the class, only though by about 9 seconds, and he has a 30-second pit stop penalty to serve as well, so that could change the order within Class C in the second half. So with Stacey in the pit lane, this has become the race lead battle we just saw out the shot there, which is Mark Rice versus Joel Osborne. A bit further down the road is Dylan Richter, who continues on in what is going to become 5th position in the diesel Audi TT.
Ryan Parkins, TT, driven by Richter at the moment, yet to stop then. That's why it has gained maybe a place or two during the pit stop cycle. The car's ahead of it coming down pit road. The Audi we're still waiting for. Same goes for Will Stacey, who will eventually hand over to Rob Boston. But remember, they've got a long way to go at the pit lane being open. Fetterfield managed to stop another much 45 minutes to play with, should be necessary. Luke Browse appearing over the brow there into turn number 1. He will be handing over to, are they brothers, the Browse? Well, we're not sure about that. Let's not even go there then, because it's always embarrassing when you get it wrong. Luke and Paul Browse sharing that bright green car.
Amy Riley, we see there, getting to the Lotus Elise after their pit stop. Lead battle across the line is pretty close. The report that we've got downstairs is that Luke Handy's car was plugged in to clear a code which they believe was causing a misfire. So, as you thought.
Yes! It's so rare that I get things like that right, Joe. Big celebration over here.
So, as you can see on our timing tower, now 4/10 of a second separate the two leaders, Mark Rice and Joel Oswick, who are 5 seconds ahead of Colin Gillespie and Cole Swift in 4th position. Up to 5th position is Dylan Richter, who shares with Ryan Parkin, who is the twin brother of Scott Parkin. I feel I said something different earlier because I've had a text from Nicky over in Castle Donington. But Ryan and Scott Parkin, as she said, one of them must be older, so perhaps that's enough for Andy McEwen to find out later.
That's true, by minutes or hours, who knows, but yeah, factually correct. It's nice to have you with us, Nicky. We gave you plenty of messages earlier on in the day, and then Josh said, I don't think he's actually watching this morning, but you are now, so good stuff. I hope you've got your feet up and enjoying the coverage from a distance. We are missing you, big star. I mentioned earlier on, the place is falling apart now for presence. Brantach next weekend. You say not? Well,
we are.
The club is, and we hope that that's your target as well, Nicky. But don't rush the recovery at the same time. There was Will Stacey charging hard through the traffic. From Boston, yes. Oh, did we have a quick stop? I missed that. I wasn't listening. Got too many things going on here.
Into the pits has come Matthew Stockford to hand over to Alan James, and our short-time leader, Mark Rice, is coming to hand over to the beach. So the German also works BMW, I think leads for the first time this season. So Young Loswick is overall race leader, as well as a class leader in the past, winner. And so that means Colin Gillespie will be second. Into third position will come Cole Swift. So Rob Boston returns to the circuit in something like 8th position in the Will Stacey owned Lotus Elise, but Rob Boston makes the front car. Scott Parkin, now that's going to be interesting, Class B. He leads by 10 seconds. He's got a 30-second success penalty. Chris Marston's got 20 seconds for this event. So it's a pretty basic match, which suggests that they will be very close together when their pit stop cycle on their fleet. There is the Stormin Camel BMW with that new sponsor, LTS Global Solutions. But where's the Camel?
Yeah, see, it's lacking for me. It's a nice colour scheme. I do like the white with the green and red. A bit blue as well, actually, but no camel. Come on.
Let's see if our cameraman can find a camel somewhere around the car. They must have a sticker somewhere.
There's a very large area on the roof there that doesn't carry the sponsor's name. I think it needs to go there. The face of a snarling camel. Although we might start to pick a fight with the Dutch crew red camel, who carry a very similar icon, mascot, if you like.
Race tracking.
Definitely not. No. My dear friend, and yours indeed, Rob Trustwell, who's looking forward to Le Mans in a few weeks. So that BMW snapped through the rear wing struts there. I like that as well. Car 101, the little 1 Series BMW, still taking on fuel from the dump churn there.
Certainly, no camel. That's something for the next round of the championship, which I won't get. Probably though, to be fair, much more going to come in here, isn't it? Off the circuit has got Papiras in the Civic. Didn't lose so much time that time, but his main aim in this race is to bring the car home. He went off at Rocket. Is it getting wetter? I turned right. The commentary box window has got a lot wetter since I last turned
You
right.
can barely see Rocket now because of the droplets on our window down to the right hand side. Really good visibility normally from the commentary box here at Anglesey. It's on the top floor of the race control building. Fine, really, right in front of us where we can see the start-finish line and the flick back through church and school. Looking through the left-hand windows, that's generally fine as well over towards turn 1. So as I suggested earlier on, all the weather systems are coming in from Rocket and Peel and hitting that part of the circuit first of all. So some adaptive driving definitely necessary right now.
Nikki tells me she won't be starting next week, so best of luck with the recovery, Nikki. We'll see you at a later date. And also with Johnny, we'll see you casting you later date.
I'll message you, Nicky, because I'm intrigued by your recovery, should we say. We obviously want it to be speedy, but not too fast. So there's the 48 car of Rob Boston, who is now leading. Windscreen wiper properly on the top level there, flicking backwards and overs. As we can head to the pit lane, that's in Andy McEwen with the driver that was earlier in this Lotus.
I'll tell you what, guys, you have definitely got the good job today. Yesterday I was out sunbathing, got a bit of a suntan, not any chance of that today. The weather really turning on us down here in the pit lane, which means that this man got out of the car just at the right time, I reckon. Will Stacey, dominant performance there in the first hour of the race. You pulled out, I think, nearly a 1 minute lead. Got to be happy with that.
Yeah, given that we had 2 safety cars as well. The Lotus goes well around here. The track suits it. We've got a lot of traction coming out the corners, especially. So we've been quick all weekend. So we knew we had the pace, about 2 seconds in qualifying, and we just had to sort of keep it clean, keep it tidy, not break the car. Managed to get quite a nice gap, then safety car, do it all again, a nice gap, safety car. But by the end we managed to get quite a nice gap. Once it started getting a bit drizzly at the end of my stint, I sort of didn't gain quite as much, but we still managed to keep the gap going up. Handed over to Rob. We had a 30-second success penalty from the previous race for the win, so I'm not sure who else has the 20 seconds and the 10 seconds, second or third. So we had to sort of keep pushing to get a nice little gap.
You say that you avoided the worst of the weather. It did get a bit sketchy out there. I was watching from the pit wall, saw a couple of little slides out the final corner, just showboating or to get a bit slick.
They weren't intentional, they weren't intentional. I think there's certain corners where you can sort of push it a bit more, where you feel a bit safer to, and coming out of there, it feels quite a nice corner to, you know, that if it is wet, you can soon get out of power. Whereas if you're a bit uncertain about going into like a fast corner in the wet, you have to be a bit more cautious because you don't want to end up looking up and shooting off.
Noticed during the pit stop there, they were just checking the oil levels. I think they topped the oil up, but are you concerned about a leak at all?
Not a leak. I think that's just a standard sort of thing that we do because it drinks so much oil. I think that we get a 500ml bottle of water ready, full of oil, just to top it up during the pit stop. But I didn't have any problems with the car. It was all going all right. We had one thing during qualifying, on both mine and Rob's laps, we had gear was jumping up from 3rd to 5th, and we found there's a loose engine mount, so we changed that. It was okay then, but towards the end of that it did happen once or twice when it had jumped up to 5th. But it's not too much of a problem, hopefully it sort of stays about that level and we can just sort of be a bit careful and nurse it and bring it home.
Awesome, well, best of luck. I'm sure you've got a good guy out there, so I'm sure you're in safe hands, Rob. Hopefully he'll bring the car home for you. Well done, man.
Thank you, thanks.
So Will Stacey's job done. The rain sort of coming and going, but I think it's here to stay now for the rest of this race.
Thanks, Andy. Find some friendly teams. We just got in the moment to get down to the final corner for Phil Nim and his Seat. Right, out over those slippery curves. Joel Oswick is leading by 6 seconds. His lap time is now 3 or 4 seconds slower than what they were in the dry. But no guessing since still putting his car out though. It is that low speed or Boston. But catching the top 2 is Cole Swift. He's catching Joel Oswick and Colin Gillespie in these conditions. All those cars yet to stop. Scott Parkin continues to be Class B by 12 seconds pro lead, and chaser Chris Blaskin also yet to pit in Class C. I think we've seen both stops, and Mike Stanford is now leading the class. Problems potentially for the Audi TT in the pit lane here. The front wheel has been taken off. More problems in the pit lane, more significant because the car now blocking the pit exit, which is the Stove Market Glass BMW F3 GTR, just about been moved out in time.
Yeah, on the brows, so that was not ideally placed. It's now to the outside. Phil Driver will go in the, no, still coming Gillespie, must be. Yeah, that car's not stopped yet, so still up in second position. Chasing down ultimately John Oswick's BMW M4, about 8 seconds between them. Yes, as the Browse BMW was trying to make a stop, just something cut out completely. Rejoining was the 1 Series BMW car 101 Grover Turner. That was just about able to exit the Parc Fermé area and avoid a slightly bigger 3 Series BMW that was being pushed by Marshalls. Time place change at the end of that lap sees Chris Plaskett get ahead of Dylan Richter's Audi TT, shares with Ryan Parkin, now down to 6th position. Ginetta in the Rothco Golf colours is now in 14 of Chris Webster, will be handed over to Matthew Tidmarsh.
The Brown car is in, they run out of fuel.
Might be as simple as that, mightn't it? Yeah, good shout.
Into the pit lane to the 20 car, holding the big black flag in Righteous Imperious car. Meeting the driving standards, the car offers definitely no chance. That car being brought in. Perhaps to check, make sure it's not a car problem. So the car to go on a few occasions. That car was damaged, which caused on the safety car period. So now that car in the pit lane, like some of the officials. Here's Cole Swift, who continues to catch Colin Gillespie to get now there just a couple of seconds for the second half on the last lap. He's going to put a lap on Alan James in his Audi RS3. I think the RS3 is a really good looking car like that. Good to see. We had a couple out of there out in that Stockford Anderson liveried car that's being run by Team Dynamics.
I remember the early development of that car, which was done in part by James Kay, who was working basically with a factory team to get a good TCR setup. And it was James who initially took it to places like Dubai to do much, much longer races than really what TCRs are designed to do. But they stand up to the test. I mean, they're so well built, according to the sprint race regulations of TCR, that you can comfortably do a 12-hour and sometimes a 24-hour race in that TCR category. They're attempting 2 hours today, though.
So we saw pit stops earlier, didn't we, for the Ginetta of Alec Livesley and the Seat Cupra of Mark Grice. Adam Bessel has come out in front of now Will Beach by about 17 seconds. And that will be because of the success penalty from Croft for the Grice and Beach team, who finished second. So they had a 20, there they are now, they had a 20-second longer pit stop, and that has dropped them, therefore, behind Adam Bessel. Because they're 17 seconds behind. So without the success penalty, that would be the other way around. And that is another new regulation, which I think came in for last year, the success penalty. But it just means you have to work that little bit harder if you've done well in the previous race.
Audi TCR being caught now by the 37, the 27 Seat Cupra that was started by Mark Grice, and Will Beach now is right on the tail of the only Audi TCR car in the entry. So the Stockford and now Alan James driven car after the driver change there. So there's the Dayglow yellow and black Cupra with Audi right with it for company heading through Siemens. Yellow flags being waved up at Rocket, I noticed. Or were they blue flags, perhaps? I couldn't quite tell the colour, but in these longer races, we will see quite a lot of blue flags as traffic needing to be aware that quicker cars wanting to get through.
I also wondered if they were yellow flags as well. That particular window is covered by water at the moment, so you can't really see out of the commentary box in that direction. Rob Boston, by the way, about 50 seconds ahead of Adam Bessel after their stops. Now the Class B leader in, and the Team Darkside team are looking at the front right corner of this car. So Scott Parkin, who won the class last time out. Now, were they just making a setup adjustment there to the suspension? Perhaps we're thinking about the rest of the race. Also into the pit lane has come Cole Swift to hand over to Rob Baker.
Carrying all sorts of sponsorship, I noticed, including Bill Stein. So that's harking back to its German heritage of the VW Golf. Some rather weather-worn treaded tyres there. Still a fair bit of life in them, though, in fairness. That's a tyre that will have come off the car, I think, as they are trying to refuel it as quickly as possible. Well, not as quickly as possible, but within the time limit, so as not to stretch over the 3-minute pit stop minimum time frame. Over the line will go the number 6 Audi. That car having dropped down the order now that Ryan Parkin has taken charge of that. Joel Oswick leading the way on 41 laps.
Yeah, I thought they were doing some work on that Audi TT during the stop, so I think they probably it was a longer stop, so they've fallen behind Handley and Phil Nibb as well, I think, during the course of that. There's the other Darkside car, the Class B leading machine, or they were, before that stop. Whatever they were doing to the right corner seems to be done. There's from Boston. His lap time, 1:35.2. So track conditions seem to be getting better again. Now, after being called in by the officials, I'm guessing they've had a word with the team and the driver. And his license for periods to be allowed back into the race. It looks like he is. So I think that's what the black flag was. It wasn't to disqualify him from the race, but to bring him to the pit lane, let one of the officials have a word, and then he can continue on his way.
Seems fair enough to me. Obviously it's delayed him, but he'd already been delayed anyway with needing to be recovered from out on the circuit. So he was many laps down. There's problems here though for the 27 car of Will Beach. Now where is he crawling on the approach to Church Corner? And this Seat Cupra all of a sudden has no fire in the belly. And it was not right up there as it was during Mark Grice's stint, but came across the line in 8th position and is now apparently dead stick. Lithuanian Honda going about the same sort of speed, tucked in behind. Is there a concern from Vitautas that he's not able to overtake? Perhaps he thought there was a safety car out on track. But Vitautas Piperas has now picked up the speed as the Cupra in question has taken to the club circuit cut through and is going to park it quite possibly in, well, that's a semi-vulnerable position there. Double wave yellows covering this area, but is this going to necessitate our third safety car, Josh?
Well, because the problem is that the driver's not really got anywhere to go, has he? So that is a problem, I would imagine, for Will Beach and Mark Rice. Now, if I was Joel Oswick's team, I would say pit now and try and get in before the safety car is potentially deployed. If it's not deployed, it doesn't really matter. One car that was coming into 16 Honda, the Matthew Stelling and John Peerless car from Class C, I would think also, though the car is in a semi-vulnerable place, it's not sure why you need an immediate safety car. We can wait and see if the car can get back going, but the marshal changes from a green flag to a safety car board, and it hasn't worked out for Joel Oswick or the 10th place car. I don't think either of them managed to pit before the safety car was called for.
The question is, were they in a position to be able to get in time? Are radio communications perfect to Joel Oswick and indeed Colin Gillespie? Well, they either didn't get the message or they're not obeying it. Saying, no, I'm in a real good run of form here, I don't want to interrupt this. Well, the good thing is, that's not going to be a long recovery because the car can roll. It's not as if it's being crashed. So 15 minutes to go, we're at 40 minutes to go. They've still got 25 minutes to play with here.
Although I think we might be hearing the Motorsport hearing a gearbox problem for Will Beach on the radio. So perhaps if it's locked in here, then okay, that's a different story. We'll see what happens next. It's certainly not the best case in the park, because on the left-hand side of the circuit, there's a perfectly good cut.
True, yeah.
You may not be aware of that. Anyway, the safety car is pulled into the middle of this pit's window because we had a lot of cars stop, but not everybody. And what we've got to see here, because the safety car will pick up Joel Oswick, is whether the likes of Adam Bessel will be on the same sort of run as Rob Boston, or whether he gets caught behind the safety car. He's right in front of Oswick, so he should get called through, which he does now. So basically, I would think the race for the win will be between Rob Boston and Adam Bessel. Bessel did go quite quickly in the G20, you see there. That's a really big advantage, isn't it, when you're the last car on the lead lap line, all the way back to the train. So, Smoke has to be the left rear corner on the Ginetta G20. Bizarrely, as the safety car comes now, he needs to have a problem. But keep an eye on that as the car comes back into the shot.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's a wheel bearing issue or maybe the brake that's grabbing, but weaving away here to try and work out what it is. I wonder whether there's some sort of crunching noise being heard in the cockpit as well of the Ginetta G20. It's had a lot of development work done over the years to it, as we were hearing earlier on by Alex Disley. He's the one that knows the back and front. Adam Bessel now on board, and they have got radio communication. I'm sure Adam's got plenty of questions for Alex Disley about this problem. It might be the hub that's somehow crying enough. I wonder whether he might be having to pit here. Obviously not for the Mandracy stop, because the Ginetta's already done this, but it's well over to the left-hand side. And the car now applying the brakes. Yeah, it's going to come into the pits here for them to check it out. It's not a bad time to do it whilst we're under safety car, but it looks like it's going to lose the lead lap because of this, John.
I think we're able to go down into the pit lane while we're out of the safety car. Andy has good points to cut it to head down to Andy Stewart.
Well, more drama then for one of our front-running cars, and well, we've just seen William Beach pulling off at the side of the road in the number 27 Sail. I've got Mark Rice, who is his co-driver, here with me. Mark, a brilliant stint for you over the first part of the race, brought the car in second place. This must be really, really disappointing.
Yes, it is. The car felt good, and we had a couple of safety cars which helped because it just let me cool the tyres back down. It's really hard around Anglesey on tyres, so that really helped, and I managed to get the Ginetta on the restart of the first safety car, and I just got my head down. I could see the
the BMW catching me, the number 2, and I just thought I'll just keep my head down. Then he sort of caught me a bit more, and then the rain started coming. I thought this is the time to pit now, why people are slowing a little bit under the rain. And then Will's gone out and he's done a few laps and he's complained about the noise on the gearbox, and then he's come to a standstill.
That's so unfortunate. These cars usually pretty bulletproof, designed to do endurance racing, of course, but you can at least take some solace from the fact that you know, the car had pace whilst it lasted.
Yeah, we had pace. We had pace at the last round at Croft as well, so that is really good. It's just Will be very disappointed he's not managed to get much time in his car, so I've got the stint in it, so hopefully we can just take what we can from the meeting and go from there.
And it looked like you enjoyed yourself. You were right in the thick of the battling, weren't you there? A very lively first lap, it seemed.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was just a matter of keeping out of trouble. We'd had that rain in the assembly area ready to go onto the track, so we didn't know how greasy it was, but then we got a double green flag lap to warm the tyres up, so I knew I could push a little bit. I had a little bit of contact with the Ginetta, just tapped me into turn 2, and he got back past me because I'd already passed him, and then I followed him for a while until the safety car, like I said earlier.
Well, it was really good fun watching you out there whilst it lasted. Really unfortunate the way it's ended, but better luck next time.
No worries, thank you very much.
So Mark Grice then out of the race, our third safety car of the day, and still some teams who haven't yet made their mandatory stop, and this was not good timing for them.
Just in front of you, Andy, I think is your next port of call, because the Ginetta that Mark Grice just referenced is being pushed into the garage with that rear left wheel issue of some description. The team had a look, Johnny, and quite confident they weren't fixing it in a hurry.
But the wheel they took off was the rear right wheel, and the smoke was coming from the rear left, I was pretty sure. So I was puzzled as to the sort of angle of attack from the team. Adam Bessel got out, not very much discussion with those tending to the back of the car, so maybe he just knew from the sounds inside that Ginetta that it was done. But there was a lot of smoke coming from the rear left. I wonder whether it was a wheel bearing or something rubbing. But as I say, to check it out, we actually took the opposite side rear wheel off, maybe to peer into the wheel arch and offer an answer. I don't want to say the results, but we're hearing it was a wheel bearing failure. And what did I say? I think I might have said a wheel bearing failure. This is very unusual for me to get 2 out of 2 so far.
It feels like you've done long distance racing.
What can I say? Once or twice. Joel Oswick, the downside here, yes, he's not going to be locked out of the pit lane for much longer, but everybody else is bunched up behind him now, so the advantage that he had when he does finally get to do his mandatory stop must be when the safety car has retracted and we've been withdrawn into the pit lane. The hit is going to be so much harder now for the BMW M4 driver.
In Class B, Scott Parkin right behind the leader, which we haven't had Chris Klasky or Joe Williams' pit stop yet. I would suggest that is a disadvantage for Scott Parkin. The closer you are to the front of the queue, you can probably gain less out of the safety car, I would imagine. You can see that the broken parts around that shot. This shot shows more rain falling over Anglesey Circus at the moment, with the safety car yet to come in. Pulling the Cooper around, but not yet into a safe place to allow the safety car to come in. I think the third safety car appearance in the race. We're yet to get all the pit stops cycled through, so we are yet to be able to give you a sort of true order at this stage. But out of the stoppers, Rob Boston is a full lap clear of Rob Baker now. Baker has Luke Handy, Phil Nib, Ryan Parkin all behind, so that's a battle that could be of a more significant position as this race plays out. Potential over the podium, I would imagine, there.
Yeah, track is clear, as we know, so happy to go racing again should the officials be, we think. And in a moment or two, generally the message is sent to the safety car team at the end of the long straight into hairpin to say, right, we've got extinguisher lights now. That gives everyone, well, as many people as possible, a clear line of sight of the safety car roof. The lights are no longer flashing down the high straight. Also, it was an intriguing start from Will Stacey earlier on in this race, wasn't it? Where he properly backed up the field heading into hairpin. I wonder what sort of approach Joel Oswick will take. Will he follow the safety car into the pit lane? I would give it a lap because you want to be trying to get into the pit road as quick as possible. And well, the safety car's not necessarily trying to do that. It's looking to enter the pit lane as safely as possible. So might want to make sure that the pit lane entry is fully open before Joel Oswick goes in. He's got still 16 or 17 minutes to make his stop, although he's well over to the left. So actually, I reckon the Phil Driver-driven car will be... Well, is that still Colin Gillespie?
Yeah,
it's still Colin, isn't it? So, but it's the VW Golf from the Darkside team that will head across the line, not as our race leader, because both of those cars in question will follow the safety car in. So these are the two remaining stops being received then Colin Gillespie in the Seat Cupra and the BMW of Joel Oswick.
I wonder if the concern is if something happens on this restart and they haven't pitted, you might get close to the point where the pit lane will close in about 15 minutes time. So both of those cars, and Chris Blaskett, who is another of the cars yet to pit, has come in. And the only one left is Joe Williams, who not necessarily is below our commentary box. I think into the pits. Not very much fuel needed in that BMW M4 to get it to the end. The mechanic has now got into the car. I believe that is. So it's got the blowers on the car to cool it down. The mechanic has jumped inside the car, the cockpit of the car there. Yes, no problem. So here comes Luke Handley driven Golf, which is in 7th position at the moment and could end up in a pretty good position, I would imagine. So through the left-hander Siemens, the group comes, the rain still falling on the circuit at the moment. But when Rob Boston comes across, the line, I think he will take the lead of the race.
Yeah, and the car's then heading into the hairpin to complete that lap. We will have a new race leader in the form of Rob Boston in car number 48. And there he is, heading out of turn number 1 now and down into the banking, opening up the steering nice and neatly to make sure that he clips at the later apex at the banking. That gives him a much better and cleaner run off the corner and towards Church. Not exactly got a clear road in front, but it's just the Golf TDI that Rob will need to negotiate in the next couple of laps with Scott Parkin in the red and black colours of Team Darkside. Still got Colin Gillespie, soon to be Phil Driver's Tartan Cupra up on its internal jacks, and the Golf not too far away either. Audi TCR car being overtaken by a recovering 92. That was in the wars earlier on, the 92 Cupra, or Leon Euro Cup to be exact, of Phil Nib, and Nib now ahead of the Audi TCR. Countdown reaches 0. The instruction to the team to release the airline and allow the Cupra down onto its tyres then, with now Phil Driver at the wheel and raring to go. Chris Plaskett's going to be weighed back into the race in a moment or two as well, just as soon as the 3 minutes on his Golf have elapsed.
I think we're just waiting, Johnny, not if you've seen it come in late, is Joe Williams, who's yet to stop his Class B Golf. We'll wait for that to happen, as Joel Oswick has got back out into the race ahead of Phil Driver and a larger gap between the pair of them. Now, Oswick's come out just in front of Boston, but that's a lap down, isn't it? So, don't mean Oswick's second.
Quite possibly. Well, he's certainly ahead of Phil Driver and Chris Plaskett, but it depends, as you say, where the Baker and Swift VW Golf is, because Joe Williams is still running in 5th position, and I certainly haven't seen that Golf come down pit lane.
We'll have to wait for the next lap and we'll get a better idea how the Class A order is looking, as the conditions possibly a little bit bleaker.
There's Williams coming into pit lane now, so he was officially second. 30 seconds adrift of this car, the Lotus Elise. And the next car over the line, is it going to be the Rob Baker-driven VW Golf, or is it perhaps more likely Joel Oswick to be a WM4?
Good battle for what will become second. There's Oswick, and then Baker's just behind with the Class B car to lap back the half between them. I would suggest this is going to become the battle of second in the race between Joel Oswick and Rob Baker. There's our finals pit stopper of the day. That's Joe Williams, the 34-year-old from Herefordshire, who only started racing last year. He'll be looking for a good result within Class B. And that's another class that we've just got to wait for these pit stops to fully cycle out to be able to give you the race leader. I think potentially some other long distance races might be more simple to follow than this one has been. But with the massive safety cars and the variation in pit stops has added complex. But across the line, Oswick is 4 tenths ahead of Swift, so that will be, or Baker now, so that's the battle for second. The best part of the lap behind this car, which is Rob Boston, who has completed 49 laps. Actually, he's lapped them there side by side for second. Going into Church Corner, Rob Baker's on the inside of Joel Oswick. They are wheel to wheel as they come out of the corner. You can see them now with the BMW on the left-hand side of the circuit. On the right-hand side of the circuit is Rob Baker. They may be a lap behind the leader, but this is the battle for second place in reality between these two cars. It's a great battle indeed, Johnny.
I also really like the complicated strategic races. I don't know whether this is some sort of masochistic tendency that I have, but yeah, side by side again, and that will be third position for a charging Rob Baker up the inside of Joel Oswick. We know the BMW is strong off the slower corners, but just didn't have the pace through the rear wheels coming out of Rocket and into Peel that time around. Endurance racing is complicated in its very nature, but then when you add weather and you add 3 safety cars and the fact you can't pit during those cautions, you really do have to have your wits about you, but keeps the brain ticking over, doesn't it? Windscreen wipers hard on though now. This is the wettest part of the circuit again, down a hairpin, Josh.
Just behind them is Phil Driver as well. Now out in that Seat, the former British GT racer. He's also raced in IMSA and the Spa 24 Hours, so a very experienced driver, Phil Driver. Nowadays concentrating on racing with the 750 Motor Club Enduro. Now, I just wonder if the BMW sliding around on the more greasy track surface, or whether that is bringing the front-wheel drive cars into a better place heading into the final stages of the race, Johnny.
Perhaps so. Something that everyone will need to stay on top of, and they'll be keeping an eye as well on various weather apps that are probably contradicting one another, actually. Some I've seen suggest the rain is going to ease off, but I favour Andy McEwen's attitude that it's probably stuck in now for the next 25 minutes, which covers the rest of this race distance. Good run for Phil Driver on Joel Oswick's BMW heading through School Corner, but we know the BMW is very good on its brakes. However, in these wet conditions, perhaps less so. There's slightly more nimble. TCR is up the inside now, the BMW that can't quite get the rotation that it was enjoying during the dry conditions. Now into Peel, and there's a nose ahead for the Cupra. Joel Oswick doesn't want to turn in on Phil Driver. The outside route through Peel was actually more beneficial for the BMW, and now Joel places the car perfectly right in the middle of the road, preventing Phil Driver from pulling alongside. That's what I've been waiting for all weekend. One of those bollards to be plucked out from the apex of Siemens, and it's finally happened.
So in this battle, you've got 20-year-old Joel Oswick just ahead of 63-year-old Phil Driver. So two people have got varying different life experiences. With Oswick there in third position, ahead of Driver. He's keeping Driver at bay despite sliding that M4 around. He turns his way up across the start and finish line to complete what is lap number 50 in this battle for third place. Scott Parkin behind them is second in Class B and over a minute behind Chris Plaskett. So I wondered if the safety car period in the pit stop window didn't work out for Scott Parkin. That's absolutely the case. So Christopher Plaskett, the new Class B leader for the driver from Surrey, in his 2-litre turbocharged Volkswagen Golf GTI run by Area Motorsport. It's now in 8th position overall. And then in third position position in Class B. I think he's going the way of Joe Williams. Yes, he's across the line now in third, just ahead of Matthew Tidmarsh, I think, in Energy 40. So that's how the football Class B stands. In Class C, it is Mike Stanford who leads. David Lawrence is on the Civic, ahead of John Pearler in Denning's car. And then in Class A, the overall leader in Boston by a lap. The big spin into the pit wall. Yes, only a very small contact into the pit wall, I think, in the end. But Edward Christie and his BMW, you can see there, the car, which hopefully, I think, didn't make as much contact as it may have done. But if that car can get back going, this race may be headed into yet another yellow flag period. But we shall wait and see. His mirror, he's what has cut. I think that's more that he's hit, isn't it? The mirror,
Maybe.
which has now ended up in the middle of the circuit. But Greg Christie, I think otherwise, that car, luckily a bit of tyre wall, isn't there, between the concrete wall and the grass.
He's got the car restarted. You can tell that from the Alpha Live camera down on the scene. I was a bit worried because I thought I heard a massive thud, but I think that was actually the car on the ripple strip losing traction coming out of that final corner and up on the curb. Naturally, that's going to create a vibration, and it had done most of its spinning before it made contact, brief contact with the tyre wall. The safety car lights are illuminated at the end of pit road, so it's raring to go, but it's not quite yet. Oh no, the boards are now out, so safety car boards and flags all the way around the circuit, and that is to retrieve the stricken BMW. The problem with its positioning is it's facing the wrong way. It's very difficult from there to do a safe U-turn after a blind bend.
Yeah, that's right. So 20 minutes on the clock. So Rob Borston's going to be pleased that he managed to pull out that full lap advantage over Cole Swift. Otherwise, that would have closed the pack down. What I was trying to do is give out the Class A in overall order before that drama happened. But it is number 48, Rob Boston leading the Lotus Elite. Second is car number 1, which is Rob Baker from the Gulf. In third position is car number 2, which is Joel Osrick's BMW M4. Then in fourth position is Phil Driver and Seat Cupra. Then in fifth position is Philip Hibbs, Seat Leon Eurocup machine. In sixth is number 51, Luke Hanley from the Gulf. In seventh position, number 6, which is Brian Parkins, Audi TDI. And second through seventh, all Class A cars that are on the same lap. So that is going to be a battle once this race gets restarted. And then the Class B leader is in 8th position, which is Chris Clark from Volkswagen Golf GTI, and in the TDI of Scott Parkins in 9th. And then in 10th position, overall, Alan James in the Audi RS3. The safety car has picked up the leader now. As I was suggesting, the rain is coming down further, increasingly coming towards the end of the race.
It's getting more wet, it's getting more misty as well, as that mist worked its way off the Irish Sea and straight onto this Anglesey circuit. International configuration this weekend. The place certainly no stranger to the odd bit of weather. I've done a few races of remembrance over the years, held in November, and could be rather rain affected throughout as well, running 2 parts often. So, but it was glorious to see it in such sunny conditions, this venue yesterday, and then very changeable today. You have to keep your eyes keen to the skies to know what's going to happen next. And for Rob Boston, well, previously Will Stacey was being asked to extend the gap on several occasions. Now Rob having to tend to his, what will this be, second safety car for Rob? Or first, I think, for him, yeah, well, we had, this was the fourth.
Oh yeah, Rob had it.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to remember whether during the third one, whether Rob had taken charge of the race. I think he just about had, yeah. And that was for the Cupra that got stuck in the middle of the track on the club section of the circuit, the cut through there.
Yeah, I was struggling with that mechanical incident. We had up the safety car there.
Yeah, well, we are trying to spin quite a few plates here, in fairness, and it pays to have a good... My memory's not bad, but when you're trying to commentate and remember things, never good at doing 2 things at once.
So we have got first and second together on the track, but there is a lap between them. So it's the cars behind Rob Boston who will be battling for second place. And frustrating again for Scott Parker. He's got caught behind the safety car for the second time if he was in front of the leader, he could have closed up on his Class 5 or Chris Claskin, but that's not the case. So I think in Class B, Chris Claskin, that's going to be just bring the car home in the finishing stages. Now Ed Christie's not got back going, so flatbed is needed, therefore, which perhaps suggests there was more contact than we thought there was with the pit wall and the tyre wall, or that car wasn't able to restart as willingly as we had hoped.
I heard it restart, but I don't know, because we can probably see it go into the tyres, because the pit wall is so high here, you see, it actually prevents us from even knowing there were tyres there. I didn't know that it was tyre protected, but it seems sensible, because it's pretty frequent that cars lose the rear end coming out of the final corner and then head towards the intersection of the circuit, or technically outside the circuit, and hit the wall. But there's obviously concern, at least for Edward Christie's car, and it being recovered safely. But the flatbed's arrived on scene. It's one of those snazzy flatbeds whereby the flatbed itself doesn't quite detach, but it is able to drop to 45 degrees and makes inching this bright orange BMW up onto the flatbed much, much easier. But it's virtually there. It'll probably be made safe. And Ed's still in the car, by the way, as it's being recovered. He can't get out because the driver's door's right up against the concrete.
As you can see now, there is some damage, isn't there? I don't think we can get that shot back that we just had a moment ago. If you look at the front of the car, we can move forwards a little bit. Down there's a bit of damage, isn't there? So the car did just clip the tyre wall. Hopefully not too bad, but a bit of bodywork damage at the very least.
Engine is running though, just maybe didn't want to do any more damage to it before it is checked. Rear wheel drive, it being a BMW E36 M3, but might have buckled the steering arm potentially, although it looked like a very light graze indeed. Anyway.
Yeah, he's surveying damage, so he's in the mechanic's garage. He's starting today.
Yes. Probably writing down a quote to get it fixed right now, actually, notepad in hand. Edward Christie is not particularly enjoying this ride because he wants to be going forwards at a high rate of knots rather than being gently eased onto a flatbed. There's nothing to say that well, once they've checked the BMW, I suppose it could rejoin for a bit of testing mileage, or he might just decide to scratch today because the road conditions aren't ideal anyway. He's going to risk another off.
Right, so hopefully we're going to get a few more racing laps in. There's 14 minutes on the clock. And we're down to something like 18 runners. Three Class C leaders are together on the track. They're separated by 3 laps, I think. So for Mike Stanford, David Lawrence, they're looking to be in a good position. Class B looks pretty settled with that best half of a lap each for Class 6. It's all about, and again in Class A, it's about full lap lead as well. It's all about the second place in the race on this restart. Both Rob Baker can keep Joel Oswick behind, and then Oswick has got all those front-wheel drive cars behind him who will be looking to chase over the remaining laps that we have in this motor race for round 2 of the TDI Club Enduro Championship. And a reminder of how the season continues, so if you're at home and would like to get involved in the Club Enduro Championship, do check out the website, all the details are there. But the next round of the championship will be at Spa. Actually, the next round at Old Park, something I didn't write that down. So that's good preparation. Alton Park is the next round, which I've been told there's lots of entries. Then they go to Spa in July, Snetterton in August, Donington Park in September, and then Silverstone, the Grand Prix circuit, the day after the first relay in October. So a month per event for Club Enduro. And this year 2 hours, the longest distance. But at Spa, it's a double header, or it's 2 races that then get combined, sort of preventing style, where you have one race, I think it's on the Friday, and then one race on the Saturday, the 100 minutes each, and it's like the safety car comes out.
So did they wave the checker at the end of the first part, and then effectively form the grid from the result of the first bit of the race?
Lap gaps, I think, stayed the same, and Joel Oswick stops.
No! What's happened there? Well, I did talk about heat soak earlier on and the fact that cars do not like to circulate at slow speed. The car that was in third position has pulled off the road on the exit of the banking and is thankfully in a relatively safe position for everyone else to overtake it. The Joel Oswich BMW, that has been a real star of this race to this point, would appear that it's going to go no further unless he can do some sort of reset on it. He's just turned the engine off, I think, or certainly taken the foot off the brake. Quick chat with the marshals. Their indication was, I think, straight toe or not going any further. Further conversation being had.
There was head in hand from one of the guys in the German auto headset and now a big shake of the head. So I think whatever Joel is telling the team, it suggests bad news. Well, just bad news, really. But some of the team now are all headed back to their garage, aren't they? So they are expecting the BMW M4 that was running so well in only its second race and heading towards the pit lane. This is going to extend the safety car period.
Exactly. So it's not only...
At least you don't get a fifth one.
True. At least, well, it's not only horrendous news for Joel, but also for us because it's denying us more green flag racing. The benefit of it happening still within the safety car is that we didn't get back to racing for, say, a lap, and then have to throw the safety car out again to try and pick up the race leader, and that really would have been a significant further delay. Might have even meant the race ended under safety car. Flatbed, another flatbed, has been sourced, thankfully, so not the one that was tending to the BMW E36 M3 of Edward Christie, but instead a secondary one, and hopefully this again can be a relatively quick recovery. We might only have about 5 minutes of racing by the end of all this.
Not an ideal race for the Club Enduro Championship. But this tour is a good time to say we'll be back next week on Alpha Live, which I think is going to be announced officially later. So we can have breaking news on Alpha Live. But we'll be back with 750 Motorsport Racing next weekend at Brands Hatch. And I thought we would announce the record for Brands Hatch next week.
You have an interesting approach to note taking, I have to say, Josh, because sometimes your notes aren't even right, and you have to remember that don't enlist all of the tracks we're going to go into later on in the year. And this time, oh, you do have the categories in front of you now at Brands.
I just thought if I thought through that and answered better.
All in the preparation, as I find, don't do any.
10 on the Indy circuit. 4, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13, 20 races for the 750 Motor Club. We've got a double header for the BMW 116 Sprint and the 120 Coupe Cup, which is a new series for this year, which was won by Steve Stoper a couple of weeks ago at Silverstone. So it's already enticing interesting names out. Matt Neal was also out that weekend, as was Tim Harvey, who hopefully didn't see track. Also racing next weekend is the Hot Hatch Championship, a full grid of hatchback cars, the Type R Trophy, the Honda Civics, Classic Stock Hatch has a double header as well, so it's this weekend a bit of a saloon car, sports car field, and sports car field to a saloon car field to next week. Dramas though during the announcement, Johnny.
Yeah, because the towing strop, I'm never quite sure what it is, it's a strop I think, has snapped. So as the flatbed started to pull the Joel Oswich BMW away, whether something's locked on the BMW, which might explain its failure and preventing it from going any further in the race. It's saying, no, I'm happy here on the grass, I don't want to go back to the paddock, and they're going to have to rethink that again. Hopefully it's not split the strop completely in half and it's just come away from the towing eye. No, I think a bit of the strap is still attached to the BMW, so a new one is going to have to be sourced, or they're just going to flip the flatbed down to ground level and pick the beamer up that way. Unfortunately, this is eating into the time yet further.
What were you saying about avoiding the making the finish on the safety car?
Yeah, I've been trying to avoid commentators' curses all weekend, but hit several of them right on the head, unfortunately, over the last couple of days. Had you completed the lineup for Brand?
No,
Sorry,
we're carrying that on.
You
Hopefully somebody else. So yeah, we said Classic Stock Hatch clears F1000, generating seated, also Formula V, 116 Trophy for the endurance race, which I'm told has a huge entry, a capacity entry with many reserves. So we look forward to that. 750 Formula as well, from World R2. you'll be pleased to know that he's going to be back for that, so he can have very much well-prepared notes and announcements next week. I'm sure he will do.
It's just that way inclined, isn't he? Being an accountant and all. Likes to have everything in order, and quite right too. Fortunately, this race has been far from in order because it's been so difficult to read from our perspective, from a spectator's viewpoint, but also if you're trying to work out the best strategy approach, strategic approach to this race, then that probably went out of the window at the first safety car. Remember, inside the first 25 minutes, we'd had 3 of them, I think. They came thick and fast. And then during the second driver stint, generally speaking, there have been 2 of them. Certainly that's the case for Rob Boston. Orange BMW that collided with the pit wall of Ed Christie is wanting to rejoin. Waits for the red light to turn green at the end of the pit lane, and it's back in the race again. Virtually all of our retirements have then gone on to return to the race today.
Yeah, so that's as long as the car picks up speed, which definitely will do. We will see more of Ed Christie during the course of this race. But hopefully we see some more racing.
Yeah.
That's what we've come to Anglesey for. And with a bit of luck, that over the course of at least one race for that. Although I'm sharpening down that.
It would be nice, but I am starting to head towards your opinion, shall we say. We've still very much got to decide who is in second position between Rob Baker's Golf, Bill Driver's Seat Cupra, and the Nib and Rath Seat Leon Euroclass holder. That's a few cars back in the order. I reckon Baker and Driver must be nose to tail, though, in the trade. Yeah, in fact, they're right behind the race leaders. So first, second and third is as they are on the timing screen, albeit there's a full lap between the Blue Lotus and then the Rob Baker-driven VW Golf in the white, red and black livery. The BMW of Joel Oswald is now on the flatbed, but the flatbed's being lowered to the full horizontal position. So it's going to get going in the next, I'd say, 30 seconds. Wouldn't be able to restart, and in fact the lights would need to go out right now, so it's going to be one more lap behind the safety car, but we shouldn't need any more. What lap times are they doing? About 3 minutes. I think we will get one racing lap to finish things off.
And like you say, there is a second position battle to settle the overall podium for sure. So that is where eyes will go towards, I would think, over that potential one racing lap. BMW's got to be tied to enter the lap there, hasn't it? So Johnny Watson is hopeful for one racing lap.
Well, the hurry up is being given to the flatbed recovery guys because they're happy now with that BMW being secure. And as long as it gets going, then these flatbeds do not hang around when they're being driven by some of the people here in Anglesey this weekend. They're probably wannabe racing drivers. But let's see whether the safety car and the flatbed can have a bit of a race that the flatbed must win in order to leave the track clear. The GAN needs to go as slow as possible, but it's giving little choice but to overtake it. That might decide it, folks. Depending on whether is there a cut through maybe that the flatbed can park over by the rescue units, maybe at school.
So they can take the cut through to the pit lane, I guess.
That's another great option, yeah. That really is, I mean, you know, I'm grabbing here at very short straws indeed, but that's possibly the only way that we can force one racing lap out of this 120-minute affair. Thank you for sticking with this, folks, whether you're either here at Anglesey in person or watching on the Alpha Live stream. We were promising you an entertaining finish to this, but unfortunately, with the recovery going somewhat south of Joel Oswick's BMW, that's rather prevented us from kicking on and providing a good scrap for second and third positions.
The flatbed is moving now, which is a positive moment in the last 20 minutes. And the pack is up at the top of the circuit. This is where it's a bit trouble on the international circuit, where we've got a bit more time to play with before the safety car is back with us. So hopefully this flatbed truck will now turn right through the club circuit, which at Anglesey, but it's not being used by the flatbed truck either at this stage.
There's another option to turn right, and it's going to take that. So that is the, that I forget. There's a shorter version that uses the hairpin, isn't there? That might be the school circuit, possibly. I might have created a name there entirely on my own back, which I'll take responsibility for. But it's the school cut through anyway, and because of that, it will be able to access the pit lane ahead of the safety car. So a neat bit of driving. We're going to go straight into the paddock with Joel Oswick's BMW. Got a minute and 26 seconds left out on the clock. The lights are out. We are going to get Joshua Barrett that one remaining final racing lap of the weekend.
And Rob Boston's doing the Will Stacey thing of backing everyone up, even though he's got a lap advantage on those behind. So I guess as long as Rob Boston goes across the line now, he basically wins the race, because no one else is going to do the extra lap in the time allotted. And I think Baker knows that, so he leaves space between himself and Boston because he has to battle to deal with Phil Driver. We get green flags eventually here on the start and finish straight. And it's a very good restart actually by Rob Baker, and he has gapped the chasing car, the Seat Cupra of Phil Driver. So I think Driver is going to get second place. Johnny, he's going to do something special over the next just under 2 miles.
Yeah, maybe it was all in Rob Baker's mind to get the business done nice and early. It's not always about dictating the race start when you are the race leader. Yes, you can't go ahead of the race leader making it start, but you can also get a jump if you're in second on the car in third, which is exactly what Rob Baker has managed to do. And the distance far too great, surely now, with only half a lap to go, for Phil Driver to take the fight to Rob Baker, who has been well and truly at home in the car that he has prepared. There was a brief worry during the pit stop. There might be a misfire that car needed to be on, or the team needed to be on top of, so they plugged the laptop in, but it was a minor scare, and it has continued on at a decent speed. Best lap of the race for the Golf in second position is a 137.4, but that's nowhere near the ballpark that the Lotus has been in. 132.7 is still the best lap of the race. Further behind, you've got the Nib and Rath Seat Leon Euro Cup car, number 92, that we caught a glimpse of a couple of moments ago. That's running in fourth, ahead of Luke Handley's VW Golf in fifth, and then the Ryan Parkin Dylan Brichter Audi TT, looking like it's going to finish in sixth place, Josh.
2 wins out of 2 for the Rob Boston Racing Lotus Elite. Will Stacey drove solo at Croft. Rob Boston has helped him to take the victory at Anglesey by a full lap. A dominant performance by Will Stacey and Rob Boston. Second went the way of Rob Baker and Cole Swift, with in third position Colin Gillespie and Phil Driver just holding off the attention for Will Stacey and Rob Boston in their Lotus Elise by a lap over Rob Baker and Cole Swift. Third went the way of Colin Gillespie and Phil Driver, and Phil Nib and Andrew Raff took fourth. Fifth for Ryan Parkin and Dylan Brichter, gaining that place on the last lap ahead of Luke Handley. Class B and 7th overall went the way of Christopher Plaskett ahead of Scott Parkin.